Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another, well, not exactly review for you. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the movie Shazam. Again, I'm late to the party on this one. I live in Japan, and the movie came out here on the 19th of April. So today is Easter Sunday as I record this, the 21st. So I went and saw the movie today. And all in all, I liked it quite a lot. It was a very fun movie, well written, well acted. I mean, Zachary Levi, I've really enjoyed that guy ever since I started watching him on Chuck years ago. Um, and very true to the comics. And it kind of feels like, okay, like Aquaman and Wonder Woman, the people making the DC movies seem to have learned some lessons, and things are. I think we have good reasons to be more optimistic about the future of the DC cinematic universe. Marvel Cinematic Universe still going strong. Certainly, it's had its missteps, but if you ever watch my Batman versus Superman review, God, I don't even like to think about that movie. Anyway, I'm not the hugest Shazam guy in the world, but I've read a decent amount of the story. And I have read the Jeff Johns reboot of the story of Shazam that is heavily the inspiration for this story. And all in all, I really do say this is a very well written movie. Like Billy has a really good character arc. Freddy has a good character arc. Dr. Savannah has a good character arc. Like even Billy's mom has a bit of a character arc. And there's a nice, kind of there's a good solid story here. And there are moments where, both, people on different sides of things both make reasonable points and are end up in conflict with each other. J. Michael Straczynski, who is probably best known as the creator of Babylon 5, but he's also got quite a bit of American comics experience under his belt, probably most notably doing a nice stint on Spider-Man. He made a quote that I heard years ago that has always stuck with me as probably one of the best things I've ever heard about writing. And he said, and this is not his exact words, but basically, drama comes from not from a clash between a great good and a great evil, but from the I guess I should say good drama comes from the clash between a great good and another great good. And that's kind of what I think one of the nice things here is that um, you do see that Billy and Fred, like especially when like Billy and Freddie have a kind of falling out during the movie. And okay, so real quick, I'm going to talk about the movie in general a little bit more, and kind of then go into a little spoiler territory. The movie, like I said, this is a really good movie. I mean, Zachary Levi is great in this. There's some great comedy, there's great drama, there's great writing. There's some very nice nods to the mythology of the comics and all of that. And yeah, I was just really satisfied with the movie when I walked out. So that I don't really think there's very much else I could have asked of this movie that it can give me. Pretty easily my favorite one of the DC movies so far, I would think. Mm, no, actually, I take that back. I'll still have to give that one to Aquaman. Aquaman, I think, was a little bit better, but just because that was a much more action adventure movie, which is kind of a little bit more what I was looking for. Here, this is kind of a more of a straight up comedy, and well, it certainly just has some decent drama in it. Yeah, so yeah, I'll say that Aquaman edges this one out a bit. Um, it's still a good movie. Anyway, kind of moving on to a little bit more spoilery stuff. I do like how, like I said, there's this moment where Billy and Freddy end up in conflict with like Freddy is like just stupidly says like, yeah, the superhero's my buddy. He's gonna come here to school and hang out. And for Billy is just like, dude, what the heck? We're supposed to be trying to protect my secret identity here, and you go and say something like that just so that people won't give you crap at school. And that's a perfectly legitimate point. But Freddy also makes the great point of like, well, dude, you have all this power, and what do you do with it? You go around and you're busking for money on the streets and taking selfies with tourists. It's your screw up that put those people on the bus in danger. I mean, yeah, you saved them, but it was your fault to begin with. Um, and I also liked that, and I don't know if this was entirely intentional, that Dr. Savannah was kind of a sympathetic character. And it's not just the fact that his brother and dad are jerks. And I gotta say, I was thrilled when I realized, like, oh my God, it's John Glover. And of course, we know John Glover as Lionel Luthor on Smallville. Back in the early 90s, he did the voice of the Riddler on Batman the Animated Series, the legendary version of Batman, Batman animation. Pretty much still to this day, the best animated superhero cartoon. And yeah, I mean, part of it, and you can really say to some degree, like him freaking out when he was rejected was not his fault. I mean, the wizard grabs him off from literally a car, says like, "Oh no, you're not going to do it," throws him back in. Well, he's a kid, of course he's going to freak out. And Shazam is doing the same thing to all these other people around the world. They're like, "What the hell happened to me? Am I going crazy?" You kind of really have to wonder, like, well, doesn't he have the ability to sort of just like wipe the few memories this takes, a few minutes at the time this takes from their memories, and let these people go back on with their lives? And then you kind of think about it, and it's like, well, maybe no, maybe he doesn't. I mean, he's literally hanging on by a thread, which I guess is kind of a point in Shazam's defense, but still, I mean, he's definitely causing these people to have these really frightening experiences that are going to stay with them, so much so that they're seeking psychological help. Um, and laying this whole thing of pure of heart at the feet of a kid, and especially Thaddeus at the time, he was like, what, 10? Well, I mean, geez, 10-year-old kids are a lot purer of heart than adults typically are, but kids can be mean little bastards too. So, yeah, I mean, you offer a kid power, especially a kid who's got some anger issues with his family. Well, of course he's going to fail. I mean, Shazam seemed to have some extremely unrealistic expectations of people. But then again, he trusted the wrong person a long time ago, and it went really, really south for him. So I kind of wish we could have been explored that a little bit more. Got to see Shazam more as a character and sort of seen his perspective on things. You can infer a lot of this if you think about it, but I think it would have been nice and made him a little bit more of a character if they could have spelled that out a little bit more. And while the whole, having a rough family history with Savannah is all well and good, you also kind of have to realize, like, this guy is like, okay, he's like a kid around 10 years old back in 1974, so he was probably born in the mid 60s or so. So that means in this, like now, he's a guy who's what? Yeah, he would have been like, oh God, I can't do math. Yeah, he would have been like, in his 60s now, and or so. Like way too old to be going around and having all this stupid drama. He just basically shows that he really never grew up properly. And by that I mean, like, was able to really put the past behind him, is what I'm trying to say here. And also, if you kind of look at the ages of like his dad and brother, they should have been way, way older than they appeared in the story. Like his brother, no wait, no, his brother would have been about in, whatever. Okay, I'm screwing up the timeline, but yeah, Savannah would probably have been at least a guy in his mid 50s or so, maybe older, give or take. And he was just a guy who could never say, you know what, my dad was a jerk, my brother was a jerk, screw them, I'm just going to get on with my life and, do my own thing. He obsesses over this. Now, granted, the whole thing with that there and being told rather callously by Shazam that he wasn't pure of heart, and that being the focal point where whatever he was enduring with his father and brother would have doubtlessly gotten a lot worse is understandable, but that's not an excuse. I mean, millions of people all over the world grow up in really bad circumstances with abusive people, and they go on with their lives. They don't let that define who they are. They move on as best they can. And Savannah was just not a guy who could do that. And I did like that when they confronted each other, Billy picked up on what Savannah was saying and realized, like, hey man, you and I are actually not that different. It doesn't have to be this way. Let's talk about this. Which again kind of goes to show you that while he's not a perfect person, Billy is ultimately a good person at heart. He did choose to stand up to help Freddie when he had no real obligation to. He felt like a real jerk when he was mean to Darla. Um, and he is very sincere in his desire to want to find his mother. So, so and his whole reaction to getting the power is exactly what you think would happen if you gave a 14-year-old power like that. But what I really like most about the story arc for Billy is that it's a really great example of just how destructive illusions can be. And we all struggle with illusions in our life. And I don't mean like, illusions as in like something like a villain like Spellbinder has, or, magic where you make somebody see something that isn't there. I mean, like, kidding ourselves about the way things are, or sort of chasing after something that in our heart of hearts we know is probably not realistic, and probably is false. Billy is utterly obsessed with this idea that if he can just find his mother, then he's going to be able to just step in and there's going to be this great and perfect life waiting for him with his mom. And when he ultimately finds her, it's like, no, she deliberately abandoned him. And she doesn't want him back in her life. Even his mom is struggling with, like, oh, hey, you landed on your feet and you're having a great life, right? Yeah? Like, this is a lie she's telling herself. She's just like, yeah, validate that I did the right thing, Billy. Validate that it was okay for me to abandon you there. Which, of course, it wasn't. And, that's really when it sinks in for Billy. He's been chasing after an illusion when, well, sure, the foster home family, it's not perfect, but they're good people who genuinely care about him, who want him there, who want to be his family, who understand where he's coming from, particularly his foster parents, who they especially say, like, hey, we get where you're coming from. We grew up in the foster system too. We know you're going through a tough time with things, and that, some of the stuff you're doing that's a little less than polite, this is just you adjusting. We get it. Now, there's, of course, limits to that. But I do like how Billy kind of realizes, like, yeah, the thing that I've been searching for has actually been in front of my face all this time. And there's this really great line towards the end of the movie where after he's shared his power with his foster brothers and sisters, and he says to Savannah, what's the point of having power if you can't share it with someone? And that's actually a really brilliant line. I can't remember if that was in the comics. I think it might have been. Pretty sure it was. But he makes such a great point. Like, who does Savannah have? Who cares about him? No one. Who does he care about? No one. And even Savannah is chasing after the idea of, oh, if I have all this power, then I'll do whatever I want, and the earth will be mine to do with as I please, and that'll make me happy. I mean, that scene where he's like ranting and Billy like, dude, you're too far away. I can't hear you. That was brilliant. I loved that. But yeah, what is the point of power if you can't share it with someone? If you clutch at power and you never share it with anyone, then you're always going to be living in fear of somebody having more than you. or somebody, coming after you. When you can share power with someone that you trust and love, then you're actually doing something with it. And Billy also makes another great point of like, well, if a hero can't protect his family, then he's not really a hero. Well, I think that's a little unfair. I mean, people sometimes can't protect their family from things due to circumstances that are beyond their control, but we'll let that slide. Um, to put it another way, think of it like this. I've played more than my fair share of D&D, and I've read a bunch of the lore books and things like that. And there's one I read years ago. It was talking about the lore of the Forgotten Realms campaign setting. And in this, they're talking about a play that exists within this fantasy world. And it's about a mage. And the gist of it is there's this big dramatic play about the life of a mage. And it culminates at the end of it with the mage saying, "If only I could trust enough to love." And supposedly mages who have watched this play have been brought to tears by that line. And that's kind of what's the crux here. Billy is willing to trust enough to love, to share his power, to share that. And that's what ultimately allows him to win, to achieve victory. He doesn't try to hold on to it. It's like trying to hold water in your hand. It just slips through your fingers, which is what Savannah is all about. And then look at where Savannah ends up at the end. He's just desperately trying to crawl back to the Rock of Eternity to try to reconnect with the deadly sins and get back what he lost. He's just obsessed with it. He can't move on. He's a man who's just trapped by this. And then he gets found by Mr. Mime, which was awesome. Again, kind of disappointing that we didn't get anything more direct with Black Adam. But that movie is still happening. Still pretty pumped about Dwayne Johnson playing Black Adam. He's a great choice. Looking forward to that movie. And yeah, guys, all in all, this is a really nice, fun movie. Good story, good acting, and it really did judge justice to the story of Shazam. So, calling it here, guys. Until next time, take care and have a good one.